here's the big question. How is it that most entrepreneurs hustle and are always busy and struggle to take just one step forward only to fall two steps back? They're dedicated, determined, and driven, but only a few finally break through and win. This show uncovers those quantum leap patterns of highly successful people so you can simply model what they do and apply to your future success. That's the question, and the answers are right here. My name is Brigitte Höfele, and this is the Success Patterns Show. And happy Tuesday, everyone, here at the Success Pattern Show. My name is Brigitte Höfele. I am the founder of the Success Pattern Movement and the CEO of the Center of NLP, where we put the do in learn, do, teach. And boy, oh boy, do we have an incredible guest expert. I want to say the doctor's in the house today. And before I go into that, I want to, as you are constantly improving, I want to talk a little bit about success and success patterns. Well, the definition of patterns is an example for others to follow. And we're going to give you some great patterns today. And the quality of the success or success all in itself is really an interesting thing as it shapes its meaning within each individual success seeker. And it's not limited to business or personal life or anywhere else that you're looking for success. Success is modeled in strategies, patterns, and behavior. And Tony Robbins is known for saying, success leaves clues. I say success comes in patterns. And when we can decode these patterns that led to other people's success, like our guest experts, then you can actually encode them into your own life so you can have success starting right now. As humans, we're hardwired for hands-on application and hands-on learning by a living teacher. We're not theoreticians here because they kind of just talk a good game. Here are grandmasters at work, and I have, as I said, an incredible guest expert on the show today. He will drop many incredible nuggets. He is a practicing ER physician. Told you guys, doctors in the house. He has completed an emergency medicine residency at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, and he was staying on as a faculty member at Vanderbilt, and he observed and researched operational inefficiencies and unrealized continuous improvement opportunities, which ultimately resulted in founding his program and his company that he's going to share more about with us today. This company is called KaiNexus and is a rapidly growing software company that helps organizations manage and excel improvement and innovation programs. Their mission, KaiNexus's mission, is to help organizations around the world to spread and scale improvement. Now, if this is not a great fit for the Success Pattern Show, I don't know what is. We're constantly giving you patterns to improve. And we have an incredible doctor in the house to talk exactly about that. So I can't wait to bring him on. Greg Jacobs, great to have you here on the Success Pattern Show. Thank you for taking time.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this. I think we're gonna have fun.
Absolutely. If it's not fun, we're not doing it. So ER doctor going into technology or turning technology entrepreneur. What the heck happened?
I obviously took a wrong turn somewhere, right?
I think you took the right turn, though. Did you not?
Yeah. No, I'm very, very grateful for the turn that I took, but it certainly wasn't a planned turn. I follow my interests, and I was handed a book by Miyazaki Amai called Kaizen, and by about page 7, I realized there was an entire discipline and methodology around applying a practice, applying patterns to any system that could help improve it. And I realized, we could teach our residents this, and we could start improving the ER that we're in and teach people how to improve the ERs that they're going to go to. And so one thing led to another. And after teaching the principles, realized trying to manage it in email was a total poop show, as my 11-year-old would say. and we're off to the races on building technology to help manage all that.
So I envision you in your free time as an ER physician, right? And I learned earlier that your wife is one as well. That you just kind of picked up, nonchalantly this Kaizen book and thought, oh, that's interesting. And as you're reading it, you're going, oh, I think everyone on the face of this earth should know about this Japanese, not just philosophy. It's much more than just a Japanese philosophy. Talk to us. How did you get to Kaizen? How did it evolve? And what is it?
Sure. So I was not the first person to think, oh, we could apply these manufacturing improvement principles. Oftentimes they're referred to as Kaizen or Lean, that we could apply them to healthcare. Actually, Dr. Berwick is credited back almost in the late 80s, early 90s for kind of making this observation. But I came to the realization in 2004, so still pretty early on in the healthcare arena. I think that you couldn't be in healthcare today and not hear the words continuous improvement. Now, how they're practiced is a different story in different places, but it was really obvious that you could take these principles of no idea is too small. Fix individual problems. Don't sweep them under the rug. If you can save just a second on a process, it's worth investigating. And putting the customer, or in this case, the patient, at the center of the equation. There's a whole host of these principles and disciplines that when you apply them to a system, the outcome of that system is that the system gets better. The system has a higher quality. And so that's essentially the beginning of this realization that, this is going to be the way I can leave a mark on my patients. And then it obviously snowballed from there.
So, I'm really grateful that you said that we're constantly, as in the field that you have been operating in, no pun intended, that you are constantly looking for improvement for the patient, and not just the patient. I like to focus on win-win-wins. I like to focus not just on win-wins, you win, I win. I like to focus on you win, I win, and whoever's connected to you and I also wins. So there's a greater win in that. And I applaud you as an ER doctor who I can only imagine the stress and the craziness that the position brings with it, that you have that drive to constantly improve, and to not just constantly improve yourself, but to actually create something much greater than you and teach others.
Yeah, no, so there's certainly, these principles can be applied to yourself. When these principles need to be applied to a system, it really does take buy-in, and it takes buy-in from leadership. So whether you're applying it to a team and needing the team leader, or an emergency department and needing the leaders of the emergency department, or even an entire large organization and needing the C-suite of the organization, to drive organizational change and organizational improvement, it really needs not only just sponsorship by the leadership, but really engagement by the leadership. Now, keep in mind, the CEO of a 20,000 person hospital system is going to engage in improvement work in a very different way than the person leading one of the emergency departments. But it needs their buy-in and their participation. So the idea and the realization that I had, that I think kind of brought some novelness to this, is, could we use technology, and could the technology be flexible enough to go into any system and really decrease the threshold, decrease the barrier with the amount of energy that has to be brought into that system to do that improvement work. And so that's really the genesis. As I reflect back over the last 20 years, specifically maybe 10, 15, thinking about KaiNexus, but how can we make that process easier for an organization to actualize?
And then it begs the question, so you have the processes and scale the processes and make them more efficient. And then there's also this human factor that still plays in as humans, because there's a human interaction from doctor to patient in this case, in your case, and in any other case, where there is human to human contact. How does one improve one's behavior? How does one improve one's attitude? How does one improve one's ability to soak in and soak up information that is so rich and so incredibly important as what you bring out?
That's a really tricky question. I think one of the questions, and you said, "Oh, we're going to have some questions that are prepared, and we'll probably never get to them." But one of the questions you asked was, "What do you value the most?" And what's interesting is that I answered a different question than the values and traits that we identified here at KaiNexus. So it's interesting. About 7 years into this journey, we sat around and we're like, "Oh, we're 20, 25, almost 30 people big." That was a couple of years ago. We said, "Hey, we don't have any values and traits that we've ever really sat down and identified that what makes you successful at KaiNexus." And one of those was to be kind. We identified that, to show empathy, to have growth mindset. Those were some of the things that we identified. And I think those are all of the things that you need to do what you're talking about. How do you recognize that perhaps you could improve? How do you recognize that the patient isn't the problem? I like to say that remember, you're not the one with the pathology. So sometimes you'll be in a room and you'll be like, "Oh wait," you start like getting embroiled in the event going on in the room, instead of leading and guiding the event going on in the room. And realizing that this isn't the best manifestation of the person that you're seeing. So, showing that empathy and leading with kindness can really help you, I think, be open enough to show that the kindness that you were mentioning, the ways, how can I improve? Emergency medicine doctors have a really high burnout. Just in general, they typically say that ER doctor lasts for about 15, 20 years. Now, I'm not going to say that I've had that exact experience, because for much of my career, I've done a very small number of shifts. So I'm not going to look at the ER doctor that's been a full-time ER doctor for 20 years and say, "Oh, well, hey, why are you burnt out? You should, bring greater awareness to your job." But those are the things that help someone to kind of show up in the best manifestation of themselves, which was my top value. To go back to that, I wrote down the question was, "What do you value the most?" I wrote down actualizing potential. And
actualizing potential.
Yeah, so think about that, because it's not saying, "Oh, I want my daughter to make A's," or I want us to reach the goal of a number at the end of the year. It's really, if you could be omniscient and just kind of know what someone's full potential is, which obviously is unknowable, and that's part of the juxtaposition there, and then try to help people actualize that. I think it's just a beautiful thing. It's actually why I'm doing this now. People ask, why are you still doing this? And just to be able to work with people and give them opportunities and see them blossom is remarkable. It's really remarkable.
So you definitely have this huge, kind heart that you have shared with us earlier to help people. Now you're helping them in a different way with a lot of knowledge. I wonder, what was little Greg like? Like, were you always this driven and, I'm here to help people? Tell us a little bit about that upbringing of little Greg.
Yeah, no, I don't really know 100%. I'll tell you I grew up in a small business world environment. We would call it entrepreneurs now. And other than my uncle, no one was in healthcare from my family. And so I went into healthcare, but I just had this entrepreneurial side of me. And there was a period of time in med school where I didn't know if I wanted to finish it. And I got involved in real estate. So I even have this whole other track of real estate that I focus my time on as well. But and so but I'll tell you, even there was never a time in my life where I could remember that I didn't think wanting to be a doctor was at least on the table. And so kind of going into college, I loved science, I loved learning, and then I loved teaching. And I started to be a TA and tutor for my different biology classes. And how do you I think a physician at its core is someone that teaches constantly, and someone that teaches and needs to teach at a lot of different levels. You go from, one room where that, might be someone that it's a non-English speaker. Maybe another person, you go to another room and they're the CEO of a 1,000-person company, and you go to the next room and they're a blue collar worker, and kind of to meet people where they're at. And so it's really rewarding.
You meet people where they're at. I'm pretty sure that is a strategy that you learn many times over in the ER, because you had no other chance to meet them where they're at with all of their, aches and pains is probably putting it mildly. In your opinion, what is the number one thing that a person is looking for when they are looking to be successful?
Yeah, well, so I think if you're thinking of being an entrepreneur, and that's the big audience that we're talking about here, there has to be an intense amount of grit. I think that's the one thing I would say is probably there has to be a tenacity to reach a goal, and that kind of solution to reach that goal is unknown, and there is no promise of success at the end. And the idea of grit also kind of it encompasses the realization that if the goal is unattainable, I'm just going to make it up. If you had grit to develop a transporter like in Star Trek, right? I mean, let's just say that that's an unattainable goal, right? Mm-hmm. I think to have grit also, it infers and it somehow means that there is some appreciation for understanding that the goal is obtainable with the resources that you have as well. Mm-hmm. And there were many times in the past, and there's still probably many times today, where you think, I don't quite know how I'm going to get to B from A, but I know I have to just take the step. And so in order to have that motivation, I think that I'll bet if you do a psychological tests on entrepreneurs in general, their level of grit is high. And maybe the entrepreneurs that are more successful, their level of grit is even higher.
And would you say the resourcefulness is even stronger than the resources that they have available?
Yeah, great point. I mean, we as a company, we are a SaaS B2B enterprise level, and most companies have raised 10x more than we have raised to date. And so figuring out where your strong suits are and kind of double downing on those. And my strong suits early on, I was not raising money. I didn't understand how investors and and venture capital couldn't make a decision right away. I was an ER doctor, and I was making a decision
immediately
about life with very little information to figure out how to proceed. And I found the entire process back at the beginning of talking to venture capital just incredibly circular, incredibly just, can you not just say yes or no and let's move on? And so we doubled down on things we were good at, which was talking to potential customers, figuring out the problems and figuring out how can we solve them, and getting people to use the product and incorporating their feedback and making it better. And if you just keep working at the things that you're good at, then you'll end up in a good place. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but
Yeah.
I think if you can align, I think I've seen the Venn diagram. It's like, what do you make money at? What are you passionate about? What do you like or something? And it's like, figure out those things and do that thing in the middle and try to do that as much as possible, especially if it helps you obtain the goal of where you're trying to get. Then, lots of things that are easier said than done. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer, and I agree with you that sweet spot in the middle is go for that, and that's easier said than done. Now, speaking of easier said than done, I bet there are times where, as a doctor, as an entrepreneur, as a dad, as just as Greg altogether, that there are times where you're like, you know what, F that. I just want to go lay down and pull the covers over my head. And then you are, tapping into that tenacity, into that grit. Where do you take that energy from? How do you overcome that challenge of, I don't want to?
I don't know. I very rarely struggle with that in any kind of long term. Certainly, in the moment, maybe I've gotten into a habit of working out in the morning, and so that's Brigitte, that's something that we kind of mentioned in the pre-show. My fascination with habits, and I used to not have a pattern or a habit of working out. And so I started this, and right when this was starting, I was reading Clear's Atomic Habits. I had already read Duhigg's The Power of Habit, and I've now read Fogg's Tiny Habits, and I think what we're really talking about here is doing things almost in an automated way, where kind of the choice of what you're going to do has been already made for you, because you've identified yourself and you've created your identity around some principle. So if that principle is, I'm a guy that works out every morning, then you don't really have the choice when you wake up, even if it really sucks. And for the first 10 minutes, it's going to suck. And sometimes the whole time it sucks. But at the end of it, you feel great about it. It's the same thing with an entrepreneur. You don't really have a choice in kind of what you're going to do. I do think it's balanced, because I think if you're every day waking up or whatever frequency, and you're thinking, wow, I don't know if I want to do this, eventually you probably should ask yourself, maybe you really shouldn't be doing this, because as near as I can tell, we've got one chance at our life. Maybe we reincarnate, but let's just say we got one chance and we're finding ourselves beating our heads against the wall and not enjoying ourselves. Maybe we should be doing something different. Certainly, we should be doing something a different way. But I think if we're talking about just the 20% or the 30%, how do you motivate yourself? I think habits are in developing and really tapping into the science of habits really help you do what you're talking about, because then you're not really having to make a choice. You're just doing the action.
Yes. And I am all for habits and rituals. Now, how do habits and rituals, let's just go with habits, because you mentioned habits earlier. How do habits get in the way of continuous improvement? Because it's something that we do over and over and over and over. And then we at one point, hopefully going to the gym, it becomes easy and we do it on autopilot.
That's
Maybe.
a super interesting. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought, because I think you're right. If you are building habits in which you're getting yourself into a rut, if you will, like maybe you're not doing the right kind of workout, or maybe you are injuring yourself. I think that's where, so I refer to myself affectionately as the great agitator here at KaiNexus. I mean that in a really loving way. I'm always trying to muck things up just a little bit, like, hey, well, why are we thinking about it this way? And I'm challenging things. I think that comes from, I think, medicine is the basis is learning science, and the basis of science developing science and expanding our knowledge is making sure we have a healthy dose of skepticism. And so, I think that the value that kind of incorporates here is the value of growth mindset. And so if you are making sure that you are kind of constantly thinking about, okay, what am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? And then infusing this idea of maybe I need to grow a little bit. Maybe I could do this discovery call a little bit differently. Maybe for one, entrepreneurs should be reading. I mean, if you haven't developed a habit of reading, then you are never going to be injecting the kind of agitation, if you will, that you need. So whether it's blog posts and books, I mean, you need to be doing a little bit of both, and they don't necessarily all need to be about business. So right now I'm doing Gene by, I'm probably going to kill his name. Oh, come on. Siddhartha Mukherjee. Oh, I'm killing that.
Okay. All right.
He has done some amazing books. And so anyway, the point is, I also think there's a lot to be learned about learning about different disciplines and then seeing how those apply. I think a lot of innovation is at the intersection of two different disciplines now.
For sure.
And so I think getting into a habit of reading, I think, is going to be really important. And that is probably going to help you, because if you're reading about something and you're learning new concepts, or you're reinforcing or expanding on old concepts, then maybe that's like the protection of how a habit could have the side effect of getting into a rut. But if we'll do the workout example, but if you're reading about fitness, then you're getting new ideas and trying to change things up. And that's growth mindset. Oh, I haven't done this exercise before. I'm not going to be good at it, but let me go ahead and go for it, etc. So,
and I guess a continuous change can also be a habit, right? It's a continuous, let me check in on that and how can I do it better? Or, as my what do you call him? Personal trainer says, always do a +1. So +1 is doing something even more, but it's a habit.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, that well said. I have nothing more to add to that. That's perfect.
Now, and I can really appreciate the concept of looking at other areas of maybe that you have studied or not studied or read about or not read about, and bring in that knowledge. How does a dad, you being a father, have an impact on you also being a successful business owner and agitator?
Well, for one, my daughter is a perfect petri dish to do experiments on. I am experimenting currently on getting her to develop the habit of feeding the dogs every night, and I'm trying different little tricks on that. But I'll tell you the interesting thing, I think you said something at the very beginning. It was something to the effect of learn, do, teach. Mm-hmm. There's an expression in medicine that says see one, do one, teach one. So I thought those were like perfectly in sync. And I think that what is so great about teaching is that the teacher inevitably learns more than the student. And so in many ways, I'm learning more from my daughter than she'll ever learn from me. It's you get to relive your childhood that you probably have forgotten a lot about. There's probably no better kind of manifestation of what you may have been like, because who knows what happened when we were 4, and then seeing her just come up with new concepts now is just is remarkable. So I also think that she's really good at, I think entrepreneurs, we ruminate about the business and about everything going on with it to probably an unhealthy degree. And having my wife and having my daughter, when I come home, one, they know that I'm in that place where I'm still like transitioning out of work, but then they pull me into that and really kind of allow me to have a mental break from that. So I think if you are fortunate enough to have a partner and fortunate enough to have a child, I think it's a very good way to help balance everything in your life.
I agree. We could talk on for hours, and I love this conversation and the nuggets and the wisdom that you bring. Our time is coming to an end. How do folks continue to stay in touch with you?
Great. So the best way is probably KaiNexus.com. So it's KAINEXUS. Thank you.com. It's the fusion of Kaizen and Nexus. We have Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other socials on there. We have a great webinar series. So if you're interested in just learning about continuous improvement in general, there's lots of that. And of course, you're showing my email. Shoot me an email. I am not necessarily the quickest at responding, but I have a process on how I do my emails. So I will definitely respond to you and we can strike up a conversation. And then I think one of the things you do is gifts. And my gift is essentially going to be, my recommendation is to read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. I think it's a great place to start your exploration of learning about habits. I have no financial connection to James Clear. And I'm going to be giving a couple of talks on habits and continuous improvement coming up that I've been thinking about these concepts really deeply for the last couple of years. And it's going to manifest in this way. So
yeah, I'm grateful, and I love to learn more from you and through you. So folks, KaiNexus, KaiNexus.com. You find all of the socials on there. I'm pretty sure that Greg's next sessions on habits are going to be posted on there as well. Follow him on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel on YouTube, KaiNexus. And Greg, will you come back at some point and share with us more wisdom?
I would be honored to. This was super fun. This is, I do a little muse on Friday mornings to the company. This is like muse on steroids. So.
All right. Well, Greg, thank you for being here. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Tune in again next week on Tuesday, same time, same place. Until then, bye and ciao for now. Thank you for tuning in to the Success Pattern Show at www.thesuccesspatternshow.com. My name is Brigitte Höfele.